So, welcome to Journal Entries. This week we have guest Gabby Bosnic. Gabby is a toddler mom and yoga teacher and owner of Serene Moms. It's an online wellness studio made specifically for mothers. She loves being home with her little family, and our conversation gets very deep. I thought we were going to talk about yoga and somatic movement, and we ended up talking about manifesting and deep desires and even the grief associating with both of those things. If you are a high-achieving mom that is addicted to productivity, you are going to want to listen in to this conversation. Gabby also gives us the number one tip to start manifesting what you want. Spoiler alert, it's journaling, except it's a very specific way to journal and what to do afterwards. If you are ready and willing to embrace a little bit of woo-woo and manifest something that has been on your heart for a while, bond listening. Most people don't know what's holding them back, but you do because you listen to me, Sam, your self-care guru and journal junkie. Welcome to Journal Entries, your safe place where you can tune in weekly to get tips, tricks, and journal prompts to uncover your feelings, gain clarity, and make your move. Welcome back to Journal Entries, everybody. This week we have a special guest, Gabby, and I'm so excited for you guys to hear everything that she has to say. But before we get into all of the juicy stuff, I just wanted her to share a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Hi, Samantha. I'm so excited to be on. My name's Gabby. I am a somatic yoga teacher and coach. I'm also the founder of Serene Moms online wellness studio. I'm so excited to be here. I help moms develop self-care routines and movement routines made specifically for moms in a supportive community.
There's so much in there. The self-care, somatic, all for moms, which I love. I feel like there's the word right now, somatic, is like everywhere. At least for me, it's like popping up on Instagram and ads and all of the things. Can you just explain a little bit about what somatic is and like what somatic exercises are and how you utilize that in your group?
Yeah, so the word somatic, it's such a buzzword right now, and I know everyone sees it online all the time. The best way to describe the word somatic is just it's unique, right? So when we're talking about somatic healing, it's individualized healing made specifically for you. When you're talking about somatic yoga, you have to kind of first think about the way we perceive yoga in the Western world. A lot of people perceive yoga in the US as just poses, and you're trying to complete a pose as almost as perfectly as possible, to have a pose look a certain way to achieve a certain result. Somatic yoga kind of changes the perspective of that. Instead of saying, let's make the pose perfect and let's make it look a certain way, we're going inward and making the pose work for you and work to heal you. So the pose is going to look differently for every person based on what you need. So somatic yoga is really about making yoga heal you inside in whatever way works for you individually. Does that make sense?
Yeah, the vision that I got was like the last time I was in a yoga class and doing like Warrior 3 or something, and the teacher coming over to correct my hips. And I almost feel like in somatic, maybe you don't. You like let that person align with like whatever that body structure is or what that person needs.
Exactly. So there isn't just a one size fits all yoga pose or a one size fits all yoga class. It's really what's made for you. So, if you're doing a yoga flow and, everyone says down dog, but the person would rather do child's pose, that's somatic yoga. They're doing what's intuitively right for them. It's very intuitive, going with your emotions and going with your physical needs. So that's something that you learn while you do somatic yoga and somatic healing. It's really following your intuition in that way. And that can go with corrections too, of course. In somatic yoga, it's less about correcting to have the outward, perfectly perceived pose and more about making sure the person feels their best on the inside.
I love that.
Yeah, it's a lot of yoga healing and it's really personalized. I think it's amazing. I've experienced so much benefit from it myself alone.
How did you get it? Did you create this or did you get into it? How did you stumble upon this?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. So that goes into a whole story. So I will start from like the very beginning because it's a lot. Well, prior to becoming a mom, I was actually a dancer. I was a semi-professional ballerina and contemporary ballet dancer. So I had been involved in movement my whole life. It's just something that's always come natural to me. But ballet is very rigid and strict, and there's very specific rules, and you have to look and move a very certain way. It's like the exact opposite of somatic yoga. It could not be more different. So I'd been involved in that space my whole life, and I really loved it. However, when I got pregnant, it became very hard to keep up that aesthetic and that lifestyle and the constant physical demands that come with the ballet dance world. It just was no longer possible for me. I also developed Hashimoto's thyroiditis, which I don't know if you know what that is. It's an autoimmune disease.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it really does impact, your physical and mental health a lot. I started gaining a lot of weight. I was very anxious beyond pregnancy symptoms. This was something that had really kind of changed the trajectory of my life a lot. And I knew that the style that I was trying to work out in this like one size fits all approach to movement with ballet and, the stereotypical Pilates classes and all that stuff just wasn't working for me anymore because I had a very unique autoimmune disease that required a really unique approach. So over time, after, giving birth to my daughter and going through postpartum, I kept really trying to do all the normal HIIT workouts and the normal routines that I kept hearing worked for so many people. I'd hear these stories like so-and-so lost 40 pounds doing, HIIT workouts, and so ran 10 miles a week, and then this happened and they feel so much better. And that just wasn't the case for me at all. So I dove really deep and learned a lot about holistic healing. It really was a true like awakening, whatever you want to call it, spiritual awakening, lifestyle change, manifestation, whatever. It really was a moment for me that was really significant in my life. And I really sort of dove away from the traditional movement experiences that we see with these high intensity classes and go mentality, and sort of dove inward and learned a lot about meditation and light movement and nervous system regulation. And that was what kind of drove the somatic yoga movement. I then went on to get my yoga certification as a yoga teacher. And now I'm currently in a somatic yoga healing program for 18 months, which has been amazing so far. So I'm really loving it. It's a journey, but it's the best journey possible because, it's really individualized and you're learning so much about yourself along the way while you're helping other people.
Yeah, I can see that. And I feel like for moms especially, we know that we need self-care. And kind of touching on when you said like the HIIT workouts, high intensity interval training and whatnot. For me, I used to do those because I thought I'll burn the most calories in the least amount of time, And as a mom, I almost feel like we're like trained to think that that's what we need to do, right? Like go for the quick wins in short amount of time. And with like somatic workouts or maybe like yoga in general, we think, oh my gosh, it needs to be an hour and a half long.
Mm-hmm.
So what's your perspective on that?
Oh, I could talk about this for days. We could be on this call for days because I think that dives deeper into this is going to get deep.
We like deep on this podcast.
Okay, good, because I'm ready to go. So I think that goes into a more foundational issue, right? Like when we are in society, when in the world we live in today, the modern world, we're constantly focused on productivity and being how productive can we possibly be? And when we become parents, we're really, in the US especially, only given a few weeks to a few months at best to rest. And then we are consistently and repeatedly told the idea that, okay, now you have to go back and you have to be the person you were before and you have to go continue to thrive in your job and you have to get your body back and you have to, manage all your relationships, keep your old friendships. You have to keep going and moving and, be as productive and consistent as possible. You don't have time to rest. You don't have time to evolve into this new person. You just got to keep going. That's our whole reality that we live in. And we see this every day. We see this with just the way our society even runs on a social level, right? And like on a fundamental level, like this is all embedded in us and it's embedded in our nervous systems as well. We're constantly told that. And so our bodies really don't know how to regulate beyond that. So when we look at, as mothers, the way that we treat our bodies and the way that we heal, it makes sense that we're going to go and say, well, I need to go do this really productive, intense workout like HIIT, or I need to go do an hour-long yoga class because otherwise it's not considered productive enough and I'm not giving enough to the world or myself. It's a waste of time. And the best step, the number one thing I always tell people to do when we're talking about somatic healing, it isn't actually moving your body. That's a part of it. But the initial step, and what's often the hardest step, is looking inward first and sort of dissolving that false perception that you have to be productive in the first place. You don't have to be. You can just rest and relax, and you can do a 20-minute, yoga session or a 30-minute, movement session or meditation, and that's enough. But in order to get there, in order to successfully do that, you have to believe it inside first. And that's a whole foundational issue that you work through a mental and mindfulness piece of somatic yoga.
Something that I talk a lot about is productivity, but more so in the concept of like hyperachieving and how a lot of women have this, and especially moms. It's almost kind of like you said, it's like fundamentally like a thing that we like a stepping stone almost. Once you become a mom, there's one more thing added onto our plates, and we're just expected to do all of the things. And so we're just handling it, right?
Yeah.
But hyperachieving is actually a form of self-sabotage that we learn from like when we're 5 years old, right? Or 7 years old. It's so eye-opening to realize that there's another way, that it doesn't have to be this way. And it really like opens up your whole world. And so I'm just curious for you, like, what was that transition when you went from A to B?
Oh my gosh. So I think that's almost an ever evolving journey. And I don't know if you feel that way, but I feel that way. It almost feels like a rebellion in the beginning, because you are. In some ways, you are really like rebelling from the traditional social norms by deciding, making a conscious choice that no, you don't have to do all the things at once. Because I truly believe moms can achieve everything they want to do in life, from a familial perspective, from a career perspective, from a confidence and fitness perspective. You can do all the things, but you can't do them all at the same time, right? It's just not possible. We have to find ways to work our time around all of our goals. They're all achievable, but we can't do them all in the same 5 minutes, right? We have to be more aware of that. Even though society tells us that it's possible, it's not, and that's okay. You're not a failure. But I think that high achieving women and moms who are very like type A and confident and need to get it all done, they struggle the most with this when they become moms, because before motherhood, even though it was hard to juggle all the moving parts, you could do it. And then when you become a mom, your whole world is rocked and you're like, oh no, now I'm no longer identifying with this socially constructive person that could do everything and like fit this mold of what society wants me to be. Now I've got to like either find ways to, keep going and eventually burn out, which is not good. Or I've got to find ways to step back and be comfortable stepping back and still be confident enough to do that and achieve all my goals when they're right for me. And that's hard. So I think for me, I struggled a lot with guilt and feeling like, oh no, I'm not doing all the things that are expected of me. People are going to think I'm not competent. People are going to think I'm not a good mom. People are going to think I'm not good at my job. Like there's so many ego fears that come with doing that, because you are going against the grain of what's typical, right? Even with just working out. I remember one day I cried in my car because I was coming home from ballet class, and granted, I was only like 6 months postpartum. Like looking back, that's crazy. I was only like 6 months out from literally birthing a baby, and I had just gone back from like this advanced open class, which is like a really difficult ballet class, difficult level. And I didn't do well in the class. At the very end, we were doing open floor, which is, if you've ever been in a ballet class, you go across the floor and you do a choreography. And I forgot the choreography like halfway through in the middle of class, and everyone saw it, and I was embarrassed. And that wasn't typical of me. Before becoming a mom, I never had that problem really. I would just kind of flow through it. And I cried in my car. And I remember calling my own mom and being in the side of the road and being like, I just don't think that I can't do this right now. And I love ballet. I love moving. I love, I love that life that I've had, but I just don't think it's possible right now. And I remember my mom said to me, she was like, you can have everything you want in life and you can have ballet back, but you might not be able to have it right now. It might not be feasible right now that you go to this class, and that you have to be okay with that. And that was when it really shifted. And I was like, okay, for the betterment of myself, for the betterment of my child, for the betterment of my family, I have to kind of understand I can't push myself so intensely. I have to be okay with taking a step back. And now it's funny because after the time I spent, taking that time away and really learning about myself, I'm actually now in a period where I'm like, I think I'm going to go back to ballet. I think I'm going to go to a class. I'm at that point now where I can do that. But that took a lot of time and effort, and it sounds counterproductive, but I had to pull away first and really do the inner work before I saw the external results and the external healing. And that's so much of somatic healing and somatic yoga and nervous system regulation, is that it's really pulling yourself away from the external environment and results first, looking inside, and then realizing, okay, now I'm ready. But it's
Mm.
hard. It's not easy.
I was going to say, at first it seems a little disheartening to be
It
like,
is.
but this is what I want and I can't do it right now, you
It
know?
is. It's disheartening. I think, and that kind of goes into like manifestation, right? Because a lot of people ask me like, oh, how do you like manifest, the motherhood experience and all these things that you want when you're a mom? Because I think when you go through matrescence, which is like the period of becoming a mother, um, there are so many goals and dreams, especially if you're like high achieving, that you really want to achieve, but it's hard. And then you're struggling with motherhood and all the transitions that come with it. I always tell people you can manifest anything you want in life and you can have anything you want. You're going to go through a period of a lot of growth and change first. And it's not going to be a simple process. I think people think, oh, they can just take a bubble bath and, like write a little journal and they're going to wake up the next day and everything's going to be perfect and their life's going to be great. They're going to do a yoga class. It's going to be awesome. That's a part of it. That's a part of, healing and yoga healing and, manifestation techniques. But the bigger part of it is actually a lot harder and not a lot of people talk about it. It's letting go of certain things that no longer serve you. It's growing pains. It's, really considering like what's best for you, what's best for your family. And that's not always pretty or fun. It can take a lot of time, but it's
Yeah.
worth it. It's worth it in the end. The end result is always worth it.
So right before we pressed record on this episode, I was telling you about my son's pre-K situation right now,
Yes.
and so for those of you listening, my son is not allowed to go to the school that I had intended on sending him to based on his age. And so I'm kind of like scrambling of where to send him. And basically one of the two schools that I can send him to is the school that I have always dreamt of sending him to. So it's almost like
Love
I
it.
manifested it, but I'm having a lot of resistance come up. And it's funny that you mentioned what you just said, because earlier today, I was thinking that if I follow through with this, of sending him to this Montessori school, it's going to make me become a different person. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to be forced to show up in a different way, to do my business in a different way, to do things differently. And it's definitely going to be a season of change and growth, even though it's something that I wanted. Or maybe
Yeah.
it's because it's what I wanted.
So I actually kind of have chills right now because what you are describing is literally what happens right before an up level. So right before you manifest something that you really wanted, like you wanted this school experience for your child, the universe will always put you in the right direction, but your ego will always give you some sense of doubt and like try to pull you back, right? Because you naturally want to feel safe, and where you feel safe is your like basic foundational line, right? Like you feel safest where you're most comfortable, and where you're most comfortable is where you've lived your whole life. Like this is a new thing for you, so it's kind of scary. So your ego's pulling you back and being like, there's going to be so many things we have to do differently. I don't know about this. But the manifestation, the up level is right there, being like, no, grow with it. Grow with it. Do it. This is happening for you. This is happening in your best interest and your child's best interest. And it's going to take growing pains. Of course, with every up level comes growing pains. But you walk out of it so much more consciously aware and heightened energy levels that you haven't had in this level of your experience, right? So it makes total sense. I'm excited for you. I think you need to
Thank
do
you.
it.
That's very reassuring because I have been on the fence because the other option is, longer hours. I would have more time to myself. But again, I've been like craving this and I don't know why. I've also been like, why has this been on my heart for so long? So
And there's this talk in spiritual circles that when you really feel that you deeply need something and you're not sure why, it's your future self pulling you in the right direction.
I love
That
that.
is a common perception. And I've experienced that feeling as well, where I've been somewhere or I felt strongly about something and I'm not sure why. And then in hindsight, I'll look back and it's because I was connected to that thing in one way or another. And it's really beautiful to be able to experience it for sure.
Yeah, I have chills now too. So, for the people listening who maybe have never manifested anything, or they're like, what the heck are they talking about? Do you have tips for manifesting, or what would you suggest a mom do if they are in that position of like, I don't have what I want and I really want this thing, or I want to feel this way? What would you suggest?
Yeah, so I think you're going to appreciate the first thing I suggest. I think that if you're in the very beginning stages and you're in your mom journey and you're looking at your life and you're like, you know what, maybe I'm happy now or I feel just okay, but things could be better, or maybe I'm unhappy and I really want things to be better, or maybe you just have a lot of really motivational goals that you really want to achieve, right? I see this a lot in a lot of high achieving moms. Um, the first step you can do, and the easiest step I think you can take, is start journaling. So sit down, at some point when you're alone in your own space where you feel comfortable and where you know you will not be distracted. That can be hard to say as a mom, but try to find a time and a space, whether it's even your bathroom for like 5 minutes, whatever you need to do, no judgment there. And sit down and use a physical pen and paper. I always tell people if you have to use your phone, you can, but this exercise works better with a pen and paper. And I want you to write out very specifically with as much detail as possible what your life would look like a year from now if you were to achieve everything that you wanted without any thought of how you were going to get there. Like, don't consider the logic behind it. Just vividly describe 1 year from now. What do you want your life to be? Be totally honest with yourself and do not let anyone else's perception come into the way of writing this. So it's just you that's reading this. You're not showing this to anyone else. And again, this isn't about logic or, oh, well, this would never really work out, so I'm not going to write it. Don't hold anything back. Write all of it. If you're as detailed as you should be, this should be pages long. Like if you're writing out, for example, I want to move to a, $1 million house. It's not enough to just say, I want to move to $1 million house. Write out what the house looks like. Where is it? What are the smells in the house? Who's with you in the house? What's a conversation you've having about the house? What's a conversation you've had in the house? Who are you talking to? What's the color of the house? Really, really get into that and make it as descriptive as possible. Once you've done that, read it. Read it back because that is how you truly feel. Then you need to accept that this is really what you want. And this is a hard part. You need to really accept this is what I want. This is what I wrote down and I am going to achieve this. That's step one. And then every day, literally every single day for the next week, when you get up or at night, either or, morning or nighttime, ideally morning, get up and reread it. Read it every day until you can basically memorize it, until you're like, I know what sentence comes next. Read it all the time because that's going to get in your head to get you to really accept that that's what you want. I think the first problem with manifestation is a lot of women, especially moms, don't want to admit what they really want because they're scared that other people might be unhappy with their choices, or they're afraid of how it's going to affect certain people. Maybe they're afraid of what their partners will think or what society will think or whatever. So the first thing is to just be very, very brutally honest with yourself and then accept that. And a lot of people also then go into the trap of, well, if I accept that, then I have to recognize A, B, and C thing is going to be really hard to attain, or maybe I don't like my life right now and this is so different from what I want. That can be worked on, but if you don't do this first step, it's going to be very hard to achieve everything else. You can't achieve a goal if you don't first really concrete know what the goal is, right? Like that has to be step number one. So that's always the first thing that I suggest.
I love that. And I think the acceptance piece, like you said, is the hardest
It
because
is.
that's where everything bubbles up. And for me, what came up was you're accepting that you want that. That comes the fears of the
Yes.
fear that that might not happen, or fear and doubt, like you said, of like that the
Yep.
universe being like, but this is on the other side.
Yep. And I think that a lot of this also goes into like chakra alignment too. And that's where you're able to really see what to work on in different somatic yoga classes, because those fears that come up are always related to a different spiritual piece of our chakras. So when we experience fear, we tend to experience it in our root chakra. And there's a lot of poses and work that we can do to work our root chakra throughout, different classes and coaching. So that's just another way that we can really work through those emotions physically and emotionally as well. But we can't do that till we know what the fears are. And we don't know what the fears are until we know really what we want. So all of
Yeah.
it is truly so connected and intertwined, but it's a beautiful process when you're able to go through it. And you really can walk out the other side being like, oh my gosh, I learned so much about myself, and you might even learn things that you don't necessarily like, or things that are like shocking to you. I think this is a hard part of manifestation. One common thread is that people will go through a manifestation process, and then they'll find that there's people in their life who aren't aligned with their vision. And eventually, at one point or another, when you're on this, whether you want to call it manifestation or self improvement, whatever it feels more aligned to you, whatever you resonate with, it's kind of all the same. You really have to ask yourself, does this person in my life, or this hobby, or this career path or whatever align with my goal? And that's where you have to end up making hard choices about, do I keep this friend in my life? Do I continue to work this job if I hate it and it doesn't impact the end game at all? It actually is counterintuitive to my end goal. Do I keep living in this city even though it actually hinders my ability to do what I want to do next year? Like it really does all connect like dominoes, and you have to sometimes let go of certain things that are holding you at this level and preventing you from up leveling to the level you want to be at. And sometimes that's hard. There can be a lot of grief associated with manifestation, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it. You really should.
Yeah.
It's about being honest. And that's where working with a coach and a teacher can really help you, because if you try to do manifestation on your own, it can feel a little lonely. You should always have someone to support you and guide you, and have a community as well of other people who are going through the same thing, because it is so empowering to have other women, especially other moms, who are going through this manifestation process with you. You will learn so much about yourself and about the mom community when you are connected to these people. You will hype each other up in the best way, and you'll be able to have more objective insight on who's in your life now and what are you doing now. Because oftentimes it takes someone who's out of your bubble to be able to say, should you really continue to have that friendship? Or should you really continue to work so hard at that job? Is it really giving you everything you need? And sometimes those questions are too hard for us to ask. So when we're involved in a community of other women that are aligned with similar visions and similar goals and going through this deep soul searching process, it can only help you. That was
Yeah.
a very long answer. I'm sorry.
I think it needs to be heard though. And
Yeah.
something that I don't share enough, but that I deeply feel, is that all of this work, and my main modality is journaling. So journaling is an act of bravery because of everything that
Yes.
you just said. You're going to be, if you're doing it deeper than surface level prompts, right? You're going to be uncovering those desires and wants that you aren't honoring, right? It's in there, and you are being productive and hyperachieving and doing all of these things so that it doesn't bubble up
Yeah.
because of all of those fears. And
Totally.
so all of these things, it's like it gives you the clarity and, hope for the future and whatnot. And that can be a really scary thing. So yeah, back to the community, having that to lean into, I think, is so important.
It's so important. I myself have invested tons of time, resources, money, and energy on having a community, a mentorship for myself to really help with my own manifestations. And it has only helped me. I cannot say enough the importance of this with any goal you have, whether it be, motherhood related, or fitness, or career, starting a business, anything. You always need someone else to rely on, someone who you can go to, someone who is above you, who you can look up to, and peers as well that you can talk to and connect with. Because you don't want to be alone on an island trying to manifest everything for you. And you could do it, but it would be a
Yeah.
lot harder. And I know, because for a while I did try to do that, and it was lonely at times, for sure.
And I think a part of manifesting is the celebration piece of like when it does
Yeah,
come into your life, it's celebrating, and doing that with a community is like 10 times more fun. But then it's like
totally.
that frequency too, and the vibration of that is more of like what you want.
Totally, totally. Yeah, when you're aligned with other people whose frequencies are higher or close to yours, you all collectively raise your energy, right? And that's
Mm.
so imperative. And so much of manifestation too, especially in the beginning stages, is be gratefulness, right? And being grateful for your present and being able to learn how to be in the present while experiencing like a grateful perspective, even if life isn't, you know, exactly how you want it to be in the future. Even if your manifestations haven't come through yet, you still have to find ways to wake up and be grateful for, what you have in the moment. And manifestation does give you that sense of peace in some ways. There is grief and there is some loneliness, but there's also a deeper peace as you go through in feeling content with yourself. Because as you learn about yourself, you can really become friends with yourself, and you can
Mhm.
start appreciating who you really are and accepting it in a way that so many of us never do. We grow up to never do this. A lot of us live almost robotically, like just getting through our trained tasks and, you know, going on with our day. It's not many people experience this ability to be able to wake up and really truly know who they are and like who they are. That is a gift. It's a gift to
Mm.
do that.
Yeah. So I know that you have a yoga. Do you call it a yoga studio?
It's an online wellness studio. So we
Okay.
do a lot of yoga classes, both on demand and live, as well as meditations, again, on demand, live, affirmations, and mom meetups, manifestation circles. And we're also hosting our first ever retreat in June of this year in Mexico, which is going to be amazing.
Yes, that sounds incredible. But just thinking of warmth right now here in Buffalo, New York, we just got like an ice storm. So
Oh, you're in
it
Buffalo?
sounds so right. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. I
Yeah.
used to live in Ithaca.
Oh, cool. I went to college at Elmira,
Oh my gosh, that's so
right
funny. I
next
went
door.
to I went to Cornell. I was like right by.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, that's so funny. Small
Small
world.
world. I was gonna say, so I thought it was called like a yoga studio, and I was like, wait. This is so much more than yoga. This is like
It is.
going into chakras and fears and manifesting. This is like an all inclusive. Yeah, I guess wellness is like the all encompassing, but it seems like so much more than that. It sounds like an awesome space.
It's something that was cultivated through my own need because when I was a mom and I was just starting out, I really looked for different resources that would be available to me that were more holistic, that could help me with, my Hashimoto's diagnosis and, just the newborn stage and becoming a mom. I felt lonely and I felt like I didn't really know how to proceed. I was doing, my gym workout classes and I did have a mom support group, but it was very generic and there wasn't a lot of moms who were interested in the same things I was interested in. So I ended up after a long, you know, dark night of the soul journey, ended up developing this studio. That's really what came from that experience. And I wanted to create a space that I would have loved to have when I was a new mom and even now. And I think it's an amazing virtual space. I love meeting with all the moms I meet with. I love doing the one-on-one coaching. I love having our community space. I actually just messaged all of them. We have a private community group chat, and I talk to everyone pretty much every day. And I had just told them how I was getting on this podcast, and I was like, I'm going to be talking about and thinking about all of you while I'm talking to her
Aw.
because they just make the experience so wonderful. I love having the community piece and meeting so many amazing moms.
Mm. So I know that you have to be a member to go on the retreat in Mexico. So everybody knows that, but tell us more about this retreat. Like where specifically is it and what's included in
Oh, I cannot wait for this retreat. I'm telling you, like as a mom, I cannot wait.
Yeah.
So the retreat's going to be in Isla Mujeres in Mexico, which if you don't know is right outside of Cancun. It's a small island. And it's going to be at a private estate in the island. The estate is going to be all single rooms. So every mom that goes will have their own private space with a king bed. The estate's also fully private for us. So we'll have our own pool, we'll have our own outdoor space, tons of space to do yoga. We're going to have our own chef make us delicious, really nourished meals every day. We're going to have our own, house cleaners and people to really help us, concierge with events. We're also going to be going to one of the Mayan pyramids, which I'm so excited about in terms of manifestation. This temple was related to the goddess of women, the goddess of fertility, love, and the moon. So I just think it could not be a more beautiful space from a spiritual perspective to go and honor this goddess while also manifesting, everything that we want in life as mothers and as women. It just couldn't be more beautiful. Every day we're going to be doing somatic yoga classes. I'm going to be doing both group classes, but then because it is somatic yoga, which again is so personalized, I'm going to be giving everyone a private yoga session every single day, a private somatic yoga session, as well as a coaching healing session to be able to really work through our blocks. So our chakra blocks, our energy blocks, and what's stopping us from meeting our manifestations. We're going to do that daily. And then we're going to have a manifestation circle to honor this goddess at night in our private estate after we have gone to the temple. Of course, everything's optional in this retreat. If there's something that doesn't resonate with you, that makes total sense. You can chill by the pool and read a book. It's totally fine. But so many moms are just so excited, and I can't wait to be there to have the energy, the collective energy of all of our auras, and to be able to really go and move with each other and flow with each other in such a beautiful and, spiritually uplifting space. I just couldn't picture a better location. Actually, it's funny. The reason I chose this location was because my husband and I went there in December. We had been to Mexico before. We had not been to Isla Mujeres. We had not been to any of the Mayan temples or pyramids. And when we had gone, it was actually funny. Actually, you can see it. So you can see here, I have like a dream catcher in the back with seashells. Yeah. So we had gone for like a day and this island to see the temple. And I had stopped on the side of the road and gotten this seashell dream catcher from this random person that was selling dream catchers. I was like, oh, this looks so beautiful. I definitely want one. And while I was there, I don't know, I can't explain it any other way, but I just had this almost feeling of like deja vu. Like I had done this before, or I had been there before, or I was like meant to be there, but it was a secluded part of the island. So like it was all residential. We were just driving through with a golf cart because that's how you get through in most of Isla Mujeres is like golf carts. We were driving through on the border of what's I now realize is like the luxury zone of the island. But when we were there, I just felt like this strange connection to the area. And, a few months later, I was telling my husband like, oh, the girls in the studio keep asking for a retreat. Maybe I should do one. And then I was like, oh, maybe I should do Mexico. Like, that sounds perfect. And so when I had looked at the estate, which one we were going to get after researching and figuring out, all the logistics, I'm not kidding. I looked on the map of the island, right? There's a whole island. Like, there's lots of places for estates. I look at the map of where the estate is. It is right next to the small little shop. It's not even a shop. It was like a little side of the road thing where the guy was selling me that dream catcher.
Oh my gosh.
I was like, what are the chances? What? Because I felt like, and at that point in December, I wasn't even sure if I was going to do a retreat. Like, it hadn't even been in my head yet. That was long ago in terms of like, strategy of when you're going to do something. So I hadn't even thought about it. But then to look back now and be like, oh my gosh, I had this strange feeling like this area was important to me. And now I know in hindsight, yes, that's where I'm hosting my retreat. And it's literally right by this same exact area. Like you can see the house from this side of the road. So I'm just amazed by that.
That's so cool.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Like, what are the chances?
Yeah.
There were so many places to get dream catchers too. And I was like, no, I just really want that one. I just really want that one. I felt like I just needed that one. And there were so many other places. We passed like 4 other dream catcher places. My husband was like, you want to stop? You want to stop? I was like, no, I just want to wait. I liked that one. Like, what?
That's amazing. And it sounds so like magical almost, like having that time for you.
Yes.
And like you said, and I just got the feedback for my groups too, that their favorite part is like just hearing from other women of like just what they're going through and like their perspective on things. And even if it's not like a breakthrough or anything, it's just truly being around other women. And so this experience of like literally being next to them, like in person, is just unparalleled, right? It's just
Totally.
going to be incredible.
Totally. No, it's the collective consciousness piece, too. It's being able to uplift each other, because we were never meant to do motherhood alone. Like, we were never meant to go through this process singularly. This is a very new way of parenting from a historical perspective. We always grew up with literal villages of people surrounding us, and older women and younger women, helping out. And now we live in this very like singular family dynamic where it's kind of like everyone's responsible for their own families, and like that's it. That isn't really biologically and historically what we're used to. And it's not necessarily, I personally don't think, the healthiest for us as moms. I think that we could always use more support. So being able to be in a space where we can cultivate that for each other and really thrive off each other and help support each other is so significant. And it's not only significant in those moments, in those short-term few days, but you'll experience the benefits of that for months to come, because your nervous system is going to be so regulated that you're going to be able to talk to your family better. You're going to have more energy. You're going to be less tired. You're not going to be lashing out to your partner or your kid or your mom or whoever, because you're going to come back with a sense of calmness that you didn't have before, because you don't have the space to have it, right? And you'll learn tools that you can take with you when you go home. So it's not like in a week that energy is gone. We're going to be learning so much about each other through these group classes, through the daily yoga coaching, which is huge, and, private yoga sessions, that you'll be able to take so much back with you in terms of skill set. You're going to come back a new person, honestly.
Yeah, I was going to say that.
It's just,
That's amazing.
Yeah. I'm so looking forward to it. I really am. I'm the teacher and I'm looking forward to it. So
So I'll put the link for that in the show notes for everybody to check out. I feel like this episode was the most honest conversation that I've had, especially around manifesting, because I feel like manifesting is always this like, oh, manifest what you want, and this like happy-go-lucky conversation. And I felt like it was so refreshing to hear about like, it's not all like rainbows and butterflies, and there is this discomfort and grief and letting go. So I just want to thank you for that. And I so appreciate everything that you shared with us today.
Of course. No, growth comes with discomfort. I had a mentor tell me in my mastermind accelerator that I'm in, that if you are not uncomfortable, you are not growing. And you need to learn how to be comfortable with the uncomfortable, because that is growth. That is manifestation. That is self-improvement. And that really, really stuck with me. And I always tell people now, I tell my own, members of the studio, if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. Get used to uncomfortability, because this is life, and this is how you grow, and this is how you turn into that person that you said you really want to be 2 years from now. I always have people describe to me, what do you want your perfect dream life to look like 2 years from now? They tell me this amazing, wonderful vision, and then I say, okay, you're going to be uncomfortable for the next 2 years, but you're going to like it.
Right.
You're going to like it.
Yeah. You'll thank me later, promise.
Exactly. You're going to be happy. You're going to like it. You're going to feel calm, but you're going to be a little uncomfortable too.
Yeah.
It's kind of like acupuncture, It's a little scary. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of needles, but you like it and you walk out happier. This is somatic yoga is like acupuncture. I actually love that. That's the best description I've ever
That's
given.
a really good analogy.
I'm going to need to remember that. I'm going to literally write that down.
Oh, this is so good, Gabby. Thank you so much for your time today and your vulnerability with everything too.
Oh my gosh, of course. Thanks for having me on, Samantha.
Thanks so much for tuning in to this week's journal entry. I love connecting with my listeners, so make sure you screenshot this episode and tag me on Instagram at samantha.s.says so I know you're listening. And don't forget to grab your free training and journal prompts at www.samanthapenkoff.com/podcast.